A good saw costs good money, especially now, so it pays to buy a good serviceable saw. Hello everyone, I'm Big Al Cox, welcome to the shop. In need of service is my Husqvarna 50. This saw was originally my grandpa Jimmy's. I ended up with it basically because nobody else wanted it. It did not run at the time and probably sat around 4 or 5 years. This saw was manufactured in 1988. I've been using it for the last 12 years, and I've done very little to the saw through those years. When I first got it, it needed the carburetor rebuilt and needed a good tune-up. Now, I'm no tree man who uses a saw every day. However, I used this saw quite a bit during the warm months, mainly to cut up fallen limbs and cut down small trees and overgrowth. Cleanup jobs mainly. It always starts, runs, and cuts great. I went down from an 18-inch bar to a 16 last year with a new Archer bar and chain, which I really love on this saw. So what does this saw need now at 36 years of age? Being the end of the mowing and trimming season 2024, I need to give the saw a good cleaning most certainly. It needs a new oil pump. The one on it's over-oiling the bar and wasting my money. I think I have a worn needle bearing, sprocket, or clutch drum. There's a lot of rattle going on in that compartment there, and the chain is slipping under a good load. So I'm just going to replace those parts. I think my clutch is still good. I'm going to clean that up and inspect it. I also need to install a new chain tension screw. There's a nylon grommet that sits on the end of that screw that has deteriorated on me, and I ended up losing it. The first step is to loosen the 3 slot screws and remove the top cover. Under the cover is the spark plug. And that needs to come out. I'm going to use my Husqvarna tool to get that out. Plug looks a little crusty there. I may want to clean that up before I put it back in. Now, in order to remove and install a new clutch on this machine, the engine has to be stopped from going past top dead center. The way I do this is by dropping about 5 to 8 inches of rope down into the cylinder carefully. I'll use an impact wrench to remove the clutch, but I always reinstall these clutches with a torque wrench. This is a 19/32 socket. Beautiful. And this is the clutch. This is the clutch drum and sprocket. That sprocket looks a little worse for wear. This is our needle bearing here. Well, let me get all of this cleaned up here. There's a lot of debris and crap in here. Then I need to get this plate off here. .5/16 nut right here holds this plate on. Everything needs to be cleaned up. A saw gets mighty dirty. I'm going to remove the outer portion of the oil pickup and I'll clean that up. There we go. And that's our oil pump. All that will need to be cleaned up before we put our new oil pump in there. Okay, I've purged my chain oil reservoir. Okay, I bought a can of CRC Brake Clean at Napa just for this, to clean all this out. Does a pretty good job of getting rid of all this crap. You want to be sure to get all that old grease out from around there. And we're going to put some new grease in there. Well, with the exception of the missing paint, like new. Who made that mess on the shop floor? That was Captain Tuttle. I'm going to take a small screwdriver and get out this oil suction tube and filter. As you can see, there's a little filter on the end of that. We need to clean all that up real nice. Make sure it flows real good. Basically, I'm just going to take some of my brake clean and spray this filter out. Make sure the passage is free. Then I'll just blow a tiny bit of compressed air through there to make sure it's cleared out and dried up. That looks pretty good. Should flow nicely. I'm going to remove my oil cap. And I'm going to blow some compressed air in here and just make sure everything's clear. And I can feel air coming out of this vent hole right here at the top and right here where this insert for the pickup is. I can still see a little bit of crud I've got in this area right in here. I'm going to take my little screwdriver and just kind of scrape that out. That's some old grease right there. Okay, I got some Napa Premium Performance multi-purpose wheel bearing grease here. You want to get grease in this cavity right here. Make sure the worm gear engages with the gear drive on the crankshaft. It should set flush in the crankcase. Okay, I've cleaned the top of my oil pickup tube, so I'm going to reinstall that. Okay, this is a new tensioner screw and a nylon collar for that. These nylon collars will degrade, and then the next thing you know, your screw backs out of there and then it exits. It's AWOL. So I need to get this nylon piece slid all the way to the top of this screw. Okay, I have my nylon collar slid all the way to the top of the screw there. And then that sits in there properly like that. That nylon collar keeps your screw from falling out. Okay, everything's looking good. I'm about ready to go back with my cover, but it needs a good old-fashioned cleanup first. Alright, she's all cleaned up. This is my 5/16 nut that goes back in there that holds the plate on. And that's our oil pump cover reinstalled. Everything looks good. Okay, time to reinstall the clutch. The first thing I'm going to go back with is my washer. Then I have my needle bearing. I'm going to take some 3-in-1 oil and just go around that and lubricate it up real nice. Then I'll slide that on the shaft first. Okay, now I'm going to take my clutch drum here and I'm going to put my sprocket onto that. Then I'm going to slide that onto the shaft over that needle bearing. Okay, I've cleaned my old clutch out with some parts cleaner and blew it out and let it dry off real nice. And keep in mind, these are left-hand threads, so this is going to thread on going in this direction. The owner's manual calls for between like 22.1 and 29.5. And that installs our clutch. Boy, look how nasty that is. That oiler was really throwing some oil out. A lot of grime and crap in there. Now doesn't that look a lot better? I think I'm gonna change this plate here on the back of this cover, since this one's a little chewed up. And this tab here actually was slammed shut, whereas this one has a nice opening and it's brand new. These pretty much just snap down on there. Okay, looking up underneath the saw, you'll see my chain tension screw is right here. I want my chain not to move more than 1/4 inch out of that bar there. Okay, now I'm going to pull my rope out of the cylinder there. I may clean up that port there a little bit. I believe I'll clean up this spark plug a little before I put it back in there. A little bit of sandpaper. Looks a lot better. Now I can go back in with the plug. Just using my Husqvarna tool here, which you can see I've used for something I shouldn't have before. While I got this open, I'm going to blow out this air filter too. I might clean up some of this area here too. Okay, looks a little better in there. I've said this before. I could spend a week cleaning a saw or a lawnmower or something else, or I can go cut some wood. Now what I'd like to do is get this cover off of here and clean this all up. Blow out my cooling fins behind this, because this is a vital part of keeping your engine cool. Four 5/16 bolts hold this cover on. Okay, and our cover should just lift off. Oh, a bunch of grime and dirt. Bunch of grime and dirt. All that needs to be blown out and cleaned up. That's a little better. Hard to believe how dirty a chainsaw actually gets. I try to blow mine out every time after I use it. But, you know, stuff gets in every crevice of these things. Well, that looks a lot better than it did before. You want to be sure you blow all that crap out of them cooling fins right there thoroughly. As you can see, I also took that outer housing off and cleaned that up. I got all my cooling fins cleaned out now. That looks a whole lot better. Well, this sucker's clean. Probably cleaner than any time at any time I've ever had the thing. All right. Five sixteenths, I'm going back on with my cover. Yeah, make sure you don't get that spark plug wire caught up under your lid like I have before. Now I've opened up my tank here. I'm going to inspect my fuel filter. I changed this a while back. I just want to look at it again. I believe everything's good with that. I've had no problems with fuel. My fuel line is okay. Might want to consider changing that before too long though. It's all running right. Starts with the right fuel mixture. Always use this 50-to-1 in my two-stroke engines as true fuel. I have some prime line bar and chain oil here I'm going to put in. Okay, everything's buttoned up. Let's see what she'll do. Big difference there. Grasshopper, let's see if the new blade will cut. It's doing absolutely great. The clutch is doing what it's supposed to, and my chain is not over-oiling itself and staying tight on the bar. One more thing I got for the old girl here is a new badge. We'll just pop this old one out here. Clean this area up here. This is my new badge. We'll spray away here. Spray away just smells good, you know it. I could bring that in the house now with no complaints. Not. Okay, let's see if we can pop the new one in here. Beautiful. Very nice. Okay, that's fixing up a Husqvarna 50 with a new needle bearing, sprocket, clutch drum, and oil pump. Also purged and cleaned the oil tank pickup, the pickup filter and tank vent. It has a new tension screw and collar. I cleaned and reinstalled the clutch. I cleaned the spark plug and the air filter, and I oiled the chain brake. I blew out the debris in the saw, including the flywheel engine cooling fins and air passages. I even dressed her up with a new badge. If you can find one of these 50 specials, 51 or 55 Husqvarna saws in decent shape, they are great units. The fact this saw is still running and cutting after 36 years is a testament to its quality and serviceability. OEM parts for these saws are getting harder to find. There are aftermarket parts out there, but be aware of the quality of some of that stuff. Buy your parts from a dealer that you can trust. Let me and others know about your experiences with these older mid-80s and early 90s Husqvarna chainsaws. I absolutely love this one. I'm Big Al Cox. We are going into a new year, 2025. I want to say thanks to everyone who watches these videos. Thanks to my subscribers on YouTube and BitChute. More to come in the new year. From my shop to yours, I wish you many blessings in the new year 2025. And hey, let's pray for love, common sense, and peace on this God's earth.